what do you got there? Is this your fundraising plan, your campaign?
This meeting I recently had, and I somewhat resented it. I meet with these guys, and they say, Gaetz, you're on TV, people know who you are in your state, and we really think you can run for higher office, but you don't raise enough money. And so they write me this plan, and it's just it's basically how to whore yourself out for money. And when I say, who's going to do this? Who wants to give me $100,000? They basically say, well, the next question is, what committees are you on? How can you use your congressional pin to go and help a lobbyist as your primary objective?
I think a lot of people would be surprised to find out that members of Congress are expected to pay their party for their committee assignments. And this is $200,000, $500,000 every election cycle just to get a certain committee seat. Now, where are you going to get that money? You're not going to go back home and have a fundraiser in somebody's living room. That just doesn't work. The people that fund your purchase of the committee seat are the people who have an interest in the work product of that committee, i.e. the lobbyists.
Every committee in the Congress has a letter grade associated with it, A, B, or C. That letter grade is solely lashed to that committee's ability to generate campaign cash for its members. If you're on the Ways and Means Committee and you have jurisdiction over the entire tax code, there is no lobbyist in this town that would not swim across the Potomac to deliver you a $5,000 PAC check. But if you're on the Veterans Affairs Committee, which is really important, you just don't have the same bevy of special interests thirsting for your attention with donations.
Under Newt Gingrich, committee chairmanships were increasingly assigned to people who raised money. And if you didn't raise that money, the Democrats did this, Nancy Pelosi did this, you kicked somebody off the chairmanship. So this is all about changing what was supposed to be a really critical institutional role played by a chairman, somebody who knows something about the field, into just the most effective fundraiser in that field.
So there's a price tag assigned to every committee, but there's also a price tag assigned to being the speaker. So the speaker up here is expected to raise about $80 million every election cycle and dole that out.
The speaker and the minority leader control distribution of funds to members. So it's the rank and file that chooses the leadership. But people misunderstand that somehow we're choosing people, that we think are the best at articulating our positions. That's not true. It's who can raise the money, and the special interest groups control the money. So the hierarchy of power in Washington, D.C. is special interest groups, leadership, rank and file members.
That system is a system that makes the members of Congress so sensitive to what the lobbyists want that it's hard for them to see above the water and recognize what the public needs.
And again, this is one of the reasons why actual talented leadership so frequently leaves the House, because committee leadership has largely been determined by two things. One, how long you've been around, and two, how much money you've fundraised. I remember last year I was at, you go through all this orientation stuff, and people have told the stories about how you get to orientation and it's recommended, they give you these recommended schedules of spending, 4 hours a day, calling wealthy donors, et cetera. But one of the other things that I remember I got that I was absolutely shocked by was a list of party leadership positions, from committee chair to caucus chair to, anything you can imagine. And there was literal money attached to it, a dollar amount attached to it. And it was just like a list. It was small business chair, oversight chair, financial service, and that was the amount of money that you were expected to raise for the party if you wanted to be considered for a leadership position. And so it sure sets up some perverse incentives, doesn't it?
Well, here we are across the street at the NRCC. I'm sort of persona non grata in this building. They don't want me in there because I haven't been doing my work in there for the past 6 years. If you go in there, you're going to see congressmen sitting in cubicles, going down lists of people who've donated to Republicans before, in many cases cold calling them, basically glorified telemarketers. And the same exact thing goes on at the DCCC as goes on here at the NRCC. I'm not going to lie to you. I crossed the street myself. My campaign doesn't run on fairy dust. So even though I don't spend any time there, There's another building right next to us where I do spend a lot of time whining and dining. The difference is I don't pay the extortion that my party asks of me.